Thanks, everyone. Welcome in the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, Andy Swan, and TD Ameritrade Network's own Evelyn Baker. Guys, there's countless things we could talk about here with this company, so I think we should just jump right into it. Evelyn, we're talking the biggest company in the S&P 500 in Apple today, and it's a massive day for earnings.
Hey, Alex. Yeah, with an intro like that, it's no wonder that so many investors are keyed into these earnings coming out today. Zacks has Apple anticipating posting earnings per share of about $1 on revenue of $73 billion, which would be up nearly 23% year over year. But I want to go ahead and throw some tweets at you guys that I found today. And the first one that I have says, buying a new $800 iPhone every year, but not investing in Apple. Just over a third of Apple's total revenue is expected to come from iPhone sales this quarter. And typically, iPhone sales represent about half of the company's annual revenue. Additionally, strong reports from Verizon and AT&T that we saw last week are leading investors to be really hopeful for Apple's phone sales as well. And along with 5G promotions, one analyst at Canaccord Genuity said that this upgrade cycle to 5G will likely be a boost for Apple through 2022. Canaccord also raised its price target on Apple ahead of its earnings report to $175 a share, up from $165, and they kept a buy rating on the stock. And also, it's interesting to note that this earnings call is usually the one right before Apple's September event where they announce their new lineup, their new slate of iPhones. However, this year's might be delayed like last year's, pending some more coronavirus news, but we don't know about that yet. My second tweet for you today touches on some concerns abroad and concerns with China. This Twitter user said, I'm actually more worried about my Apple than my Baba in terms of risks with China at this point. They're referring to Apple versus Alibaba, that huge Chinese tech giant. But as far as Chinese headlines with Apple, there's been flooding in China interrupting factory production, ongoing chip shortages, and the Chinese government cracking down on its own tech companies. But my question for the LikeFolio crew here is, what do you see as the biggest threat to Apple right now? Is it potential pandemic worries, China, or even antitrust regulations here at home?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to figure out what could derail Apple. This is a company that has done extraordinarily well. And when you look at the basket of services and products that they have, it seems like they've created an almost impenetrable moat around an entire ecosystem. This was all very much by design. You know, hats off to Tim Cook and the team for seeing the services business as the next avenue for growth, because they're executing on that really well. And from a consumer happiness standpoint at LikeFolio, we're really seeing that pay dividends. You see the Apple TV as the one thing that consumers are most happy about as they look at the whole lineup of Apple products, with iPhone and AirPods down at the bottom. Well, Apple doesn't need to sell a whole lot of new iPhones and AirPods. They need to make those users more valuable to their ecosystem, and Apple TV is one way they do that. And my favorite way that they're doing that, from a personal perspective and from looking at the data, is the show Ted Lasso, really driving an incredible amount of consumer happiness, an incredible amount of engagement with the Apple TV platform, and really generating a lot of word of mouth advertising for Apple TV. And you don't really think of Apple TV as something that needs word of mouth advertising, but in the age of Netflix, Hulu, Amazon TV, all of that, there is a lot of competition. And so competing for eyeballs is the new game. And now we see Apple TV, because of Ted Lasso, really, with higher consumer happiness ratings and more buzz than Roku or any other streaming device or platform.
I'm not
Andy,
surprised.
there's a
that
lot
show's
to go
amazing.
through here. Oh,
Go on, Kevin.
okay, thanks. So, Andy, there's a lot to go through here, as you know. And for the record, for everyone, just so everyone knows, both young and old, Ted Lasso is the only show that I watch on TV. The only show that I make time out of my day to go watch. And it is fabulous. And Brendan Hunt,
the Coach Beard on the show, proud alumni of Illinois State University, like me. But that being said, this show is, remember, the high-profile show was the morning show with Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell. Well, this is the show that's caused the biggest buzz, in my opinion. This is the show that out of nowhere has snuck up and attracted more viewers and more discussion, at least in my circle, than anything else on Apple TV or on streaming in general. It has. So don't underestimate that. But Andy, my question from a perspective is, services are important, right? The service sector that's growing is important. But you can say the service the service part of this company is still connected to the fact that they're an iPhone company. Those services are generated via an iPhone. So the iPhone sales that are expected to be, big are still the ones driving this company. But Andy, I've filtered this all down to one question. This stock has just rallied 22% ahead of earnings. Very similar to what it did a quarter ago ahead of earnings, and the stock didn't hold after a relatively strong earnings report last quarter, much like Microsoft. Can this stock hold this level, and what kind of earnings do they need to hold this level, Andy?
Yeah, I think it can hold this level. I don't really see it. LikeFolio's earnings score right now overall is pretty neutral on Apple. But it's really, I think, about that next phase. I think Evelyn nailed it with the September, product launch that they typically run right around the corner. I think it's going to be about that 5G. I think there's going to be concerns about the chip making and all the supply chain worries. But the cool thing about Apple that they have in their back pocket now that they just didn't have several years ago is this very fast-growing, very robust services revenue, where they are monetizing on a daily basis each and every one of those device holders in their ecosystem, whether they upgrade their device or not. And so, yes, the upgrade cycle is important, but it's declining in importance. And I think Apple, for very good reasons, will get a pass from Wall Street when they come out. I think that they're going to say that iPhone demand, some of their typical strong product lines are going to be down a little bit. The consumer demand we're seeing is down a little bit, but that's fairly natural, given the product cycle. And I think as we head into this September event, it will be much more important than it is for today's earnings report.
So a couple things here, Andy. First off, AirPods at 49% positive sentiment. I need to meet these 1 in 2 people who don't like this product, because I stand by that is one of the best discretionary purchases that I've ever personally made. 2, Ted Lasso, tip my hat to the creators of that show. One of the most uniquely unifying, agreeable things in the sense that people all over the place, everyone I've met, I have not heard one bad thing about this show in a time where we don't agree about anything. So I love that. And finally, though, we've talked about Apple and really all of these FANG names and mega cap companies as basically racing to become the first company to create an ecosystem where you can basically catch all. Anything you need to do in the world, you can do through some way through this company. In many ways, Apple's now here. We're at the point where Apple has developed payment structures. They've developed content. They have the devices. They have the games. They got everything at this point. And so, Andy, how do we consider the future of Apple now that we're here? We're in the ecosystem. We were talking about this yesterday in Tesla. So much of the excitement about Tesla was what they were going to do, the master plan. Well, now that the master plan in many ways has actually been executed on, it's like the classic buy the rumor, sell the news is taking place. Is it possible that Apple just kind of turns into this blue chip company that just almost prints money, but it just doesn't have that excitement that it did when it was pushing the envelope and changing the world with its new devices? Or is there still creativity over at Apple, and they're still going to innovate and surprise us?
I think that there's still creativity over at Apple, and I think they will surprise us. I think that what they're probably working on next is much bigger items that take a lot longer to develop. So if you think about where Apple is and where they've had their success, they've locked down our pockets, our palms, somewhat our desktop, but they have not locked down our living rooms. They have not locked down our garages. They have not even locked down really our office spaces. So there are really big areas of technological innovation that Apple can target, but they take a lot longer to innovate in. And I don't see Apple at this point coming to market with products that aren't up to snuff. And so I think it takes a long time for them to perfect those. And the next iterations will be, really big ideas. But it's so fascinating to watch this company be able to turn itself into a services business and create this, this cash cow of revenue coming in, even when their device upgrade cycles aren't as exciting as they used to be. So they've got a lot of room to run. They've got plenty of cash to do it. They're probably one acquisition away from being a really exciting company again. And on the AirPods thing, I just do want to clarify, the people that are negative on AirPods mostly are negative because they lost one of them, and so that probably could be a positive for Apple overall from a revenue perspective, because I think they're going to go back out and buy one.
Yeah, I love that. I understand that sentiment as well. Andy, if I were to sum everything up now, it sounds like you're conscious of the rally we've seen in Apple, at least on the short-term basis. And although you're not worried about this earnings report, it just comes down to risk tolerance and investor sentiment. But on the long term, I haven't heard much negativity out of you. I think this is probably still one that LikeFolio likes over the next 5 to 10 years.
You nailed it. That's exactly right.
All righty. Andy Swan, always a pleasure, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com and TD Ameritrade Network's own Evelyn Baker, always a pleasure.